Hello, this is Dan Shedd stepping in for Kevin Price here on The Price of Business. I am here with Dan McDade, who wrote an article featured on priceofbusiness.com called Do You Love or Hate Cold Calling? And he's the CEO of PointClearLLC.com.
This is Kevin Price. Actually, I'm going to go ahead. I happen to be able to come back in. I'm going to stay in with Dan, but I'm going to let Dan do most of the questioning. Dan, and this is Dan McDade, by the way, that I'm talking about. Dan, tell us a little bit about your company.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that opportunity. Basically, we enable sales professionals to focus on what they do best, which is closing business and not having to find business. And we do that by engaging contacts, developing prospects, and nurturing those prospects until they're ready for a sales rep to come in and close. And we basically find that with the nurturing that we do, that we're able to increase lead rates by about 3 times by staying on top of the market over a long period of time.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about the article over there at priceofbusiness.com where you talked about the love and hate of cold calling. First of all, what was it about that article that caught your attention to make it something you wanted to participate in?
Well, there's a raging debate, I think, right now, Kevin, about inbound versus outbound marketing, and there's a lot of technology that's being put in place to support marketing departments, and a lot of it is very good. I think the one thing that we are pretty consistent talking about is that while inbound marketing is great, outbound marketing is definitely not dead. And while I hate cold calling, I do really like that the proactive, intelligently researched and targeted outbound market contact that leads to really some of the best leads. So this is a debate that's raging and has been raging for several years now. And I think that the tide is turning a little bit, that enough companies have tried to live on inbound and found that they just can't depend on inbound to increase revenues every year.
Dan Shedd, your question?
So, what certain aspects did you feature in your article about, like, what are the reasons why people hate cold calling, according to you?
Well, I think people hate cold calling because they consider it similar to getting interrupted in the middle of dinner with somebody reading a 90-second script trying to sell you something that you don't want. And that's definitely not something that we like to suggest that companies do. Conversely, the most senior executives are a lot less likely to give up what's called digital body language by filling out forms and reacting to inbound marketing. And they're about 2.5 times more responsive than junior executives to quality outbound calls and emails. And a lot of the reason for that is that, number one, they're busy, but number two, they want to make sure that they're hearing information from outsiders, not just inside their company.
Yeah, very good. By the way, give us your website real quick.
Our website is www.pointclear.com.
Pointclear.com. Also, Dan Shedd, your next question?
About cold calling, what suggestions do you have to people who are starting out cold calling?
A couple of things. One is make sure that you're doing your research. Today, with tools available like LinkedIn, as an example, it's really silly to make a cold call into someone without researching them, finding out a little bit about what they're passionate about, what their company might be dealing with, some of the issues specific to their industry. So the very first thing is to make sure that you do your research. The other thing is that individuals, sales professionals, for example, many times give up too soon. It can take anywhere from 8 to 12 touches, meaning telephone calls, voicemails, and emails, to effectively reach the target audience. People are just busy, but the fact that they don't return your first phone call doesn't mean they're not interested. So being tenacious and persistent is important as well.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think people do give up too soon. And I think people, as a rule, there's more distractions now than at any time in modern business. It's incredible. In spite of all the tools, those two tools both hurt and help us. They not merely help us, I think, at least.
Yeah, and we're all busy, but at the same time, I'm sure that you would agree with me that when I hear an outstanding voicemail message or I receive an email that I think is really well done, if it's something that I'm interested in, I'm going to follow up on it. Whether I follow it up on it right now or a week from now is at my discretion. But
Right.
typically I will respond to something that comes across as high quality as well as something that's pertinent to me or my business.
Dan, I appreciate your time. Dan McDade, he, by the way, has an article at priceofbusiness.com. You can also learn more about him at pointclear.com. Dan Shedd, he's a contributor here. He's also involved with the Price of Business, involved with asking questions as well. When we come back, much more for you. You're listening to The Price of Business. Best content here shows up over there at usdatareview.com.